justice for their daughter now for, it's been quite a few years now, a few years, I should say, and they go to Congress every year, and they go before and they testify before Congress, and they bang on representatives' doors to try to get some response from our government to look into, to have a truth-finding commission to find out exactly what happened.
Was there any photographers at that time? I mean, that could be...
There were.
Yeah.
There were people on the ground,
Mhm.
which is, and there's testimony, which is why there's a big question mark over what exactly went on there.
Mm.
Because the Israeli military says one thing,
Sure.
and the eyewitnesses say another.
Was this story in the American media 3-4 years ago?
Yes and no. It depends on where you were. Now, in a place like Wichita, where the media is pretty insular and sort of draws, if you will, there's a kind of invisible boundary around Sedgwick County that you often don't hear a lot of what's going on, even for American citizens in other parts of the United States.
Does that include the Wichita Eagle?
I think it's the media in general here. It tends to be, maybe because of what it thinks it needs to do to sell advertising or sell newspapers when there's a lot of competition, it tends to be fairly insular.
But I have to be, Dr. Gordon, I really have to be fair here. When an Israeli boy is killed, it makes head news in Wichita.
Absolutely.
The Wichita Eagle and
absolutely.
TV stations.
Absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, and in fact, there's lots of academic research done in the U.S. as well as in Britain. Glasgow University in, I believe, is in Scotland. There's a lot of academic research. There's books out now about the media bias on this issue and the way the media treats deaths of Palestinians versus deaths of Israelis.
I have here confirmation, April and May, over 40 Palestinians have been killed by the Israeli army. Most of them were civilians, 8 children.
Yes.
We did not see this in the U.S. media.
I think since the election of Hamas, there has been a virtual blackout on what is happening to Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem, at least I would say among sort of smaller town media. Maybe not in the New York Times, a big city newspaper. And in fact, in the New York Times, there have been some very interesting op-eds about the whole funding situation with Hamas, including op-eds arguing for not cutting off funding to the Palestinian Authority. But you're not going to see that in an area so much. You're not going to see that in the Bible Belt, in a local newspaper that's tilts pretty heavily, I would say, toward Israel.
So the question here, is it done purposely not to educate the American people?
That's a complicated issue, and journalists have actually talked about it. I think what's gone on in America after the Lebanon debacle for Israel, one of the things we know, and you can read about it actually in the Israeli media, if not in the U.S. media, one of the things that happened was that the diplomatic corps throughout the world the Israeli diplomatic corps was trained in public relations. Because Lebanon was such a public relations disaster for Israel. So this public relations corps, in other words, the diplomats in Chicago, let's say the Israeli embassy in Chicago, you'll often see that they will come to Kansas City or to Wichita, and they are the ones who bring the message to local organizations about what kind of media action they should take and what kind of public relations should happen at the local level all over America for support for Israel. So there's a very well organized political machinery in the United States, and there's no secret about it.
In fact, on my TV show about a month and a half ago, I received a phone call from one of the viewers. He said, there shall not be any Palestinian alive today. He said all of them should have been killed a long time ago, and the Palestinians are not exist.
Well, see, I think the real tragedy of that, of course, is not only do the Palestinians exist, but actually what you read at the beginning of the show about the strengthening of Palestinian identity is one of the best kept secrets, I think, from America. No matter, I don't know who's ultimately responsible for that, but if you leave America, you will find that Palestinian identity, particularly among refugees, not just inside the West Bank and Gaza, but also the fact that oftentimes in America we forget most Palestinians today are outside the Palestinian territories. That's where the Palestinian people are.
Correct.
And so the outside, the diaspora, well, it's not even a diaspora really, it's a dispersal, the scattering of Palestinians all over the world is actually the core of the Palestinian people and their identity. But you don't know that in America.
And actually, what's so fascinating is, despite the scattering all over the world, the Palestinians are considered the most educated people. They have more doctors, engineers, and professionals, as well as entrepreneurs among all the nations. I do have callers. We'll start with caller number 1. Good evening, TJ.
Hey, Nabil, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, sir?
Okay, great. Hey, first off, I've got a question for you, and Dr. Gordon is wonderful. I really enjoyed listening to her. But first, you had that Muhammad seminar, or whatever it was.
Right. Legacy of Muhammad.
Okay.
Remind him of when.
I mean, I'm just an old white guy that was was born a Christian. I don't know what I was born, but anyway, I was raised a Christian and everything. I don't know a whole lot about Muhammad, but he's kind of like Jesus, isn't he?
He is like Jesus from our terminology and understanding that he is a prophet and messenger.
Okay, so, I mean, is he the son of Allah?
No, God neither begot nor begotten. But that's exactly, TJ, I think if you really need to find out more information in depth, June 3rd is a perfect time to understand for yourself, because we did invite scholars from American scholars, male and female, who will give you an insight information about his legacy and his life. You're going to discover that there is a lot of similarities. It's going to be 100% almost, if 99% similarities between Muhammad, Moses, and Jesus.
Okay. I would love, and where is that taking place?
It's going to be at WSU. It's called Albert Hall. It's the main entrance to the university that is next to, actually it's on 17th Street, next to Hillside. There is a building that's got some drawings, I think some painting. It's called Albert Hall.
Oh, is it Alberg?
Yes, Alberg Hall.
Okay. I would...
and let me give you this phone number. If you would write it down, it's 990-7744. It's 990-7744. This gentleman's name is A-M-I-R, Amir. A-M-I-R. Give him a call. He will give you all the details, and it's for free, by the way.
Well, that's outstanding. I would love to, because with all this, the war on terror and, Islam against Christianity and all this stuff, I'm getting kind of lost. And I've been around for a little while here.
Right.
So, and I'm just, I don't understand what's going on, and that's what I would like to kind of get back to Dr. Gordon with, is that I don't understand the Palestinian-Israeli conflict. I mean, I know there's one going on over there. There's been one going on there, I don't know, for I think hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. Is that not correct?
Well, first of all, let me say something to you. I'm an old white gal, and as you can see, maybe you can't see, I have lots of gray hair, and I also was raised a Christian. So that's the first thing I would say to you. The one thing I would say about, and I don't want to get into a lot of detail about this because I'd like to focus on some issues around freedom of expression and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. But the one thing I would say is that, in fact, the Palestinian-Israeli conflict is not a very old conflict. It's a very recent one. It's primarily a 20th century conflict.
54?